The Associated Taxpayers of Idaho held their annual conference in Boise earlier this week. Associate producer Logan Finney sat down with ATI President Miguel Legarreta to get an update on the tax landscape for Idahoans.
Miguel, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet. Glad to be here.
So as president of ATI, the Associated Taxpayers of Idaho, we're coming out of your annual conference that happened this year. When we talk about Idaho and Idaho's tax structure, how do we compare to other states in the region and across the country?
We're doing extraordinarily well. Revenue continues to go up for the state. We have a lot of folks coming here, obviously. And in terms of tax policy, we've been very proactive. We've addressed income tax, we've lowered it, consolidated it. We've addressed property tax to a large extent, we've lowered it. Folks just received their property tax notices. I suspect they noticed a pretty substantive decrease in their taxes due to some policy shifts towards the state and towards the state funding schools. So a lot of positives, I've spoken in some other states actually, Wyoming, Texas, who are facing a lot of the same issues with property and other tax issues, and looking to Idaho as an example of some ideas to follow. So really well.
And at the office at ATI, you guys have a lot of data over the years. How has the tax burden changed in the last period of time for an average Idaho family?
I've seen the income has gone up substantially, which is a positive to see, as we often saw Idaho on the bottom end of income related to our state. So income's increased, but along with that, and where we're not feeling it as much, as expenses and inflation have gone up and increased commensurate with that. So there's sort of and that also doesn't address the stimulus checks that people received. So there's a lot of like ebbs and flows in our economy where it's a little like challenging or a little bit muddy as it relates to how am I doing, how am I feeling, what type of expenses relative to my income am I experiencing. So we're doing very positively. I think that's why folks are looking to the state and looking to Idaho as an example. However, like a lot of the rest of the country, there's a lot that's happened over the last several years, policy-wise and in our economy.
Sure. There's always kind of an appetite at the legislature to cut taxes further. I want to say our income tax is about 5.9 right now. Other states like Louisiana have cut their income tax and also at the same time raised their sales tax to kind of offset some of those revenue changes. When lawmakers are looking at tax relief for families in Idaho, where can they get the most bang for their buck in terms of making an impact on that day-to-day Idahoan?
The income tax relief is a benefit across the board, so I like it. I know that's, there's a lot of opinions, varying opinions on it. And beyond it being like a broader benefit, we're in a competitive position as a state as well. And a lot of states are doing exactly what you said, Logan, is lowering their income tax. And they're having the same conversations in their state that we're having here, and how Idaho compares and how we're doing. And so again, that's a fairly consistent thing. And a lot of there are states that don't have to do it with, such as Idaho did, with an increase to revenue. They can do it because of the position they're in, and that's what we've been doing.
When it comes to sales taxes, there's kind of a pretty consistent push from a certain group of lawmakers to get rid of the sales tax on groceries,
right.
That 6% sales tax we pay on most things in the state. When it comes to selecting certain things to exempt from taxes, how difficult does that become on the policy implementation stage?
It's a difficult policy position. I understand, this discussion's been going on for years, but Idaho's one of, I think, about 5 states at this point with the credit, and I think some folks have looked at that like maybe we need to change and go to the sales tax side and decrease that. However, the credit really addresses the issue when you look at it holistically. About 90+% of Idahoans get it, people that are tourists and others don't. And in addition to that, if increasing the credit is something we want to look at, we can address that inflationary component of it by increasing the credit that people claim, and then look how that number aligns with the other side of the discussion, so we get parity on that front. So I think the credit is the way to, like, on a consistent way without destabilizing our income and our revenue relative to the folks who don't pay it or wouldn't. And that benefit with the credit would sustain itself.
And the credit structure is also unique in that it's changing, it's cutting that money out of the revenue stream before the state collects it, rather than the state setting up some sort of program and then doling out funds to people. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's set up before it hits the revenue, and it's already set up as what's the benefit to. It's set up to go. Increasing it is de minimis, if any, change to our policy. And certainly that's a big issue, right? Everybody feels it at the grocery store. So what can we do to address that? It's a real quick fix.
And another policy area that's getting a lot of attention, especially the last couple of years, is school choice, giving families options for private schooling. I won't ask you about school choice broadly, but one of the ideas is a tax credit for private school funds. So that would be kind of a similar structure to the grocery tax credit in a way. It'd be people taking money off of their income taxes to put toward, in this case, private school expenses. Is that a good way to carry out public policy goals? We have policy goals where we want to reward certain behavior or make certain behavior easier. How effective is it to do those type of things through the tax code?
In terms of the policy side and the influence side, it works. Credits work very well in that regard. I think the discussion to a large extent will be, to your point, on the other side. What do we think of it in terms of a policy dynamic? That's an interesting discussion they'll have. And also in terms of the revenue. Our revenue, while stable and increasing, isn't what it was. And so the piece of the pie isn't as big as it was either. So I think those are the big discussions there. But in terms of the policy dynamics and the credit in and of itself, it works well in that respect, similar to the grocery credit.
All right. Well, Miguel Legarreta, President of the Associated Taxpayers of Idaho, thanks for your time.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you.